we can afford a UBI, but we just choose billionaires instead. We are constantly being told that we can't afford things like a universal basic income. It's too expensive. It's not realistic. Where would the money even come from? But here's the twist. We already spend hundreds of billions of dollars every year on the wealthy. So today, we're going to put the truth side by side. How much would a UBI cost? And how does that compare to what we already give the rich? For free. Part 1. How much does a modest UBI actually cost? Let's define a modest UBI. So let's say about $1,000 a month for every single US adult. That's about 260 million people, okay? So that totals around $3.1 trillion per year. A big number, yes, but that's gross cost before the offsets. Once you account for taxing some or all of it back from high earners, reductions in welfare bureaucracy, and lower poverty-related costs, crime, homelessness, ER visits, etc. Most economists estimate the cost of a UBI could be between $700 billion and $1.5 trillion a year, depending on design. And that is to give every single adult in the United States a baseline of financial security, no strings attached. Part 2, what we spend to make the rich richer. Now let's talk about the money that we already give away to people who don't need it. The 2017 Trump tax cuts, that cost $1.9 trillion over 10 years. 2/3 of that went to the top 20%. The top 1% alone pocketed about $120 billion per year. But it doesn't stop there. Add in capital gains tax loopholes, carried interest for hedge fund managers, corporate tax avoidance, offshore accounts, and you're looking at about $400 to $500 billion per year in tax giveaways to the top 10%, especially the ultra wealthy. Part 3, UBI versus tax cuts, side by side. Let's put them next to each other. Annual cost for a UBI is between $700 billion and $1.5 trillion. Tax cuts for the rich is about $500 billion. Who benefits? With the UBI, everybody benefits. With the tax cut for the rich, the top 10%, mostly top 1%. The results: reduces poverty, boosts local economies, and for the tax cuts, increases inequality and stock buybacks. So the next time somebody says to you that a UBI is unaffordable, just remember, we are halfway there already. We're just spending the money in the wrong direction. Part 4, this isn't just math, this is priority. This is not about scarcity, this is about priorities. UBI will put money in the hands of people who would spend it immediately. Groceries, rent, childcare, debt. Tax cuts for the rich, they go straight into stock buybacks, luxury real estate, and offshore accounts. In one case, the economy grows from the bottom up. In the other, the wealth just floats higher. Part 5, so why isn't this happening? The truth? The people who would lose power under UBI are the ones writing the rules. If every American had a financial baseline, you would be harder to exploit, less afraid to strike, and less desperate to accept garbage wages. And that, my friends, makes UBI a threat. Not to the economy, certainly not to the economy, but to the status quo. Now, if you're wondering why we haven't done this already, why UBI just hasn't happened, even though it's affordable and effective, there's also another reason. You're not wrong to ask, and here's the real answer. UBI threatens the entire logic of late-stage capitalism, a system that needs desperation. It runs on low wages, unaffordable housing, fear of medical bills, and people stuck in toxic jobs that they cannot afford to leave. UBI breaks that cycle. It gives people leverage, breathing room, freedom. And that terrifies the people who are hoarding all the power. Because the moment that you're not desperate, you can walk away. Bye. You can organize. and you can demand better. And that is actually why UBI is dismissed as unrealistic, not because of cost, but because of what it would do to a system that's built to keep us just broke enough to behave. So the bottom line is yes, we can't afford a UBI. Period. Flat out. United States could afford $1,000 a month for every single adult in the United States. Every single month. They can't afford it. They choose not to. They choose to give it to the billionaires. It's a shitty choice. And I would never, ever choose that. I did not vote for that. I don't think I ever gave any clue that I would want something like that. There are so many studies that talk about the UBI that have been tried in other countries, in other cities and towns across the country and the world, and I have not heard or seen one bad report. Every single time the people do better, they get paid, they pay their bills, they had some security, they were happier, they were healthier, they ate better, they slept better. You know, they spent that money, you know, so it went right back to all these rich people, you know, like they get the money anyway. Anyway, guys, thank you for swinging by for another video. I appreciate that, and I will talk to you soon. You guys take good care of yourselves, and I will see you later. Thanks. Bye.